When it comes to one thing, I could say good riddance to somebody. Um, there was let's see, in 2003, Rush Limpdick was already infamous as a racist and misogynist who used his nationally syndicated radio show to refer to feminists as feminazis, and he mocked gay men who died from AIDS, and he falsely blamed the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing on Middle Eastern terrorists. Um, and ESPN hired him anyway, but eventually he was forced to resign after making some inappropriate comment. Um, that wasn't tolerated by ESPN anyway, but his acute sense of what's on the minds of his listeners, combined with an ability to entertain and serve as a lightning rod for lively discussion, makes him the perfect fit for this new role. This is what Mark Shapiro, who was then the network's executive vice president of programming and production, said when the right wing talk show host was joined when Rush Limpdick had joined the Sunday NFL Countdown, which was ESPN's popular pregame show. Then as now, NFL rosters were majority black. They were like a majority of them were black anyway. But it was also the inaugural year of the Rooney Rule, which mandates that all teams, doesn't matter what sport, they must interview at least one candidate of color for head coaching, and senior operation roles. Um, Limbaugh was not a perfect fit for this thing, and just 1 month into the show, he claimed that Donovan McNabb, who was then the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, had received too much credit for his team's success because the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. After swift backlash, Limbaugh was forced to step down. He got what he deserved, and so did ESPN. To be clear, Limbaugh wasn't hired in spite of his bigoted provocations; he was hired because of them. In his toxic comments, executives heard an ability to entertain, as if racism, homophobia, and sexism were nothing more than a surefire shtick. He was Archie Bunker on steroids, with a massive audience who found in his nastiness a salve for their mediocrity. He offered up scapegoats for their failings. Limbaugh's radio show was an indoctrination camp for white supremacy, and ESPN fucking knew it. Meanwhile, anyone who denounced Limbaugh as dangerous was dismissed as a scold who just didn't get the joke, and he was not funny at all. After his death Wednesday, his sycophants were defending him. Democrats who didn't listen to Rush never understood how funny he was. He really wasn't. Um, Tweeted Rich Lowry, editor of the conservative National Review, but what set him off from his many imitators was how wildly entertaining he was, not really, and the absolutely unbreakable bond he formed with his listeners. Yeah, brainwashing them. Was not funny, and he was not entertaining, except to those except to those who never targeted that were never targeted by his vitriol. ESPN executives saw his base of angry white men as symbiotic with their own, ignoring the fact that women and people of color and the LGBTQ people and others who despised everything. Limbaugh also represented the network that he was basically on. Years before Limbaugh's ill-conceived ESPN stunt, then President Bill Clinton had excoriated the loud and angry voices on the airwaves that spread hate and leave the impression, by their very words, that violence is acceptable. Days earlier, Timothy McVeigh, an anti-government white supremacist, had blown up a federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people. Clinton never mentioned Limbaugh by name, but everyone knew who had the biggest mouth and the biggest audience. And ESPN wanted that mouth and audience, and for 30 years, Limbaugh did more than just coerce in this nation's political discourse. He injected it with poison that millions mainlined. He became a template for the faux news and every Republican president dating back to George H.W. Bush, and clamored for an endorsement that could make a campaign. A week after Limbaugh's ESPN departure, Tom Jackson, one of two black men who had to share the Sunday NFL Countdown stage with the bellicose radio host, had chastised the network for its cynical hiring gamble. Rush Limbaugh is known for the divisive nature of his rhetoric. This is what Tom Jackson had said. He creates controversy, and what he said during that Sunday is the same type of thing that he said on radio for years. Influential in all the wrong ways, Limbaugh would remain on radio for nearly over 20 years. He spread the birther lies about President Obama. He called a young woman a misogynistic slur for testifying about the importance of birth control and insurance coverage. He mocked the actor Michael J. Fox's Parkinson's disease, and he railed against the Black Lives Matter. In his final show, he perpetuated mendacious election fraud claims after more than 81 million people rejected his greatest acolyte, Donald Trump. And the radio show host, the one-time reality show host, blueprint for limiting this nation's worst impulses, and he used it to get into the White House. Trump was also called an entertainer who knows how to play to an audience, by feeding them lies. An attempt to excuse his most grievous sins as a kind of performance art, right up to the deadly insurrection he incited at the Capitol last month. Despite Limbo's brief time on ESPN, the network helped normalize his brand of brazen demagoguery and plucked from right-wing media. The right-wing media radio. Limbaugh was mainstreamed into millions of homes on those Sunday mornings. A firebrand evangelist for white supremacy allowed a national television platform under the benign cover of America's most beloved sport. Yeah, we already knew that Rush Limbaugh was a racist piece of shit anyway for years.